back here live on GameSpot's stage show. Tyler Weingartner breaking it down for you. If you have any questions, just get into the chat, ask some folks. We're going to be here all week, and it's going to be awesome. Now, we're going on to our next demo, and it's for Super Time Force, game from Capybara Games, and Nathan is joining me on stage. Nathan, we're really glad to have you on here. I'm super tempted to talk about your shirt and below and that reveal from the Microsoft press conference yesterday.
We're all about the teases, man. We gotta tease it up continually.
You are, and I think we're getting Super Time Force set up right now. So let's set up Super Time Force. You guys have been showing this game for a little while, and as opposed to Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, a wonderful game you guys made a splash with years ago.
Oh shucks.
This is a whole different direction for you guys.
It is, and that's what we like to do as a studio. We like to do, our take on certain genres, put a little twist into it, add some jokes or add some atmosphere, or make it about aesthetics. Like, we like to play around with that sort of stuff. So Super Time Force is kind of our ode to Contra, ode to Gunstar Heroes, but done in a really cappy way, where it's jokes first, but where it's also about like a really different and kind of crazy central mechanic, which is time travel.
Yeah, the central mechanic is time travel, and you're not talking about time travel in like, go back and shoot the dinosaurs. Well, there may be dinosaur shooting.
You actually do shoot dinosaurs, yes. Mandatory.
Of course,
mandatory.
But it's like a core mechanic that happens when you die in the level. That's a whole, death is not the end of the level.
No.
It's a tool that you use to progress.
That's like the perfect segue into the game's kind of like tagline, which is like, death is gameplay, right? When most games, it's punishment for failing at gameplay. In Super Time Force,
it's the end of gameplay,
yes,
try again.
Yes. So now in the game, it used to be that you just, like when we showed it the first time, maybe a year and a half ago, it used to be that you die, the game rewinds, and then you're playing alongside all the past versions. Now you can actively choose to time out. And timing out means that you're basically pulling yourself out of that period. You can switch your characters around, move through time, and choose where you start back again and jump right back in. So the game has changed from being, death is just a component, to now death is actually a thing that you actively kind of control. And basically, you end up in a scenario where you can play run, gun, mash some buttons, but you can also play very strategically and choose to get in a situation, time out, add in maybe a defensive character, time out, add in a heavy weapons character. So it can kind of get a little strategic if you want to play it that way. But for me personally, I mash a lot of buttons, and I just love to run and gun.
You're just run, gun. If you die, you're coming back with another character. Now, if that was a little mind-bending for you folks, you're not alone. I got a little confused there for a moment. We've got gameplay coming up for you any second now. They're just getting it hooked up right now. But you talked about multiple characters.
Absolutely.
You could perish or time out and come back as the same dude, same powers, but you got different classes of character here.
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of different characters, all the way from melee characters to, characters that are about movement, or characters that are about heavy weapons, or basically every character in the game has their regular fire, and then a secondary attack or a special attack that you charge up. And so it's kind of a little bit of give and take. Like, you might want to mash, you might want to charge up, but every special attack, really does something special. The sniper can shoot through walls. The Jeff Leopard, the grenade guy, can actually shoot like a giant rocket that has splash damage. Or even if you're going to play the defensive character, Shieldy Blockerson, you can actually lay defensive zones that'll actually absorb bullets, and so you can actually put your new or your past lives or your future lives into those areas of protection.
And so you're kind of playing co-op with yourself in a way?
Yeah.
We
totally try to not to say that you play with yourself. But it's really hard not to say that. So, because actually it is single player co-op.
That's what I'm here for, to say the things that I don't think are going to be awkward innuendos, and then they are. And
let's innuendo it up all the time, man. That's again, that actually fits perfectly into the game, because it's. We have a sense of humor. We're really not taking the game that seriously, which is a lot of fun, and that's part of the that's part of us. That's part of why we started making games. Was to we want to do the super serious, very stylized, aesthetically driven stuff like Sorcery and like Below.
Sure.
But at the same time, we also want to throw in some fart jokes.
You just want to get a little bonkers with it, and one of the things I really enjoyed actually was a trailer you guys released a little while ago that was only a little bit of it was gameplay. A lot of it was cartoons, just absurdist kind of cartoon take on the characters, and what kind of world is it actually where they're the superheroes who just don't care about dying.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do, and we have a lot of really super talented animators in the studio. So when the idea came up to do let's do a Saturday morning cartoon, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
So we had Kelly Smith, who's one of the artists of the studio. She did most of the animation entirely by herself. Little help from Kiko, who is actually one of the guys working on Below and worked on Critter Crunch and Clash of Heroes. And we just, jammed through a bunch of crazy, ridiculous animations of people jumping bikes into tire fires, and that's the trailer for the game. Why not?
Jumping bikes into tire fires, confirmed biking into tire fires, playable in game, or is that just going to be?
That's actually a really good idea.
I mean,
if we put that in, you get a kickback.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
So, folks, just to update you on the situation, this is Super Time Force. We're talking with Nathan from Capybara Games about it. The PC is having a little bit of issue. We're getting the Xbox hooked up right now, and I guess that's a good segue to talk actually about platform and Super Time Force, because Cappy, of course, on stage yesterday for Microsoft's press conference to show off Below. But where's Super Time Force destined to arrive in playable form?
Super Time Force will be out on Xbox Live Arcade not too long from now. This year for sure.
This year, excellent.
Yeah, I feel like I've been saying that for a while, but we really wanted to show the game early. I mean, the game started as a game jam game. Kenneth, who's the lead programmer and co-creator.
And speaking of showing the game, let's go right to the gameplay here.
Let's forget what I was saying.
Because we've got a hologram general with 2 eye patches.
Yeah, that's two eye patches. That's Colonel Rapitsky. He's in charge of Super Time Force. And so basically you get to choose your character. Every character has their primary attack and their secondary attack. So this is basically the heavy machine gun character. And as you can tell, there's a clock counting down right in the middle of the screen. And that clock is how much time you have left to exist in this time period. So you have to get to the end by a certain amount of time. But you can collect clocks, which will add time. You can also rewind and optimize your playthroughs. So right now you've got 2 different versions of the character. And that save that you saw there, if you kill an enemy before it killed one of your past lives, that means it never shot the bullet, which means you never died, which means you can save that person.
And if you save, what's the incentive to save your past life? Do you have a limited amount of...
You do have a limited amount. You have Ode to Contra 30 lives.
Okay, yeah.
And if you run out of those 30 lives, then you got to start back at the beginning.
So now, that was a death. And we're just rotating between these different characters we see now. Heavy guy's back on the screen. Didn't maybe manage to save, but now is progressing. Boom. This is a death. We're going to rewind.
So he can decide, okay, I don't really want to go back that far. I did okay. I just made one mistake. So I'm going to go forward from there.
Get to that enemy before he kills your previous self. Then you save your previous self, maintain your life count, and you're going on.
Exactly. But the other real upside of it is that you can choose whenever or however you want to time out. You don't have to go just 5 seconds back. You can go to the very beginning and actually start the entire level over again alongside all these many versions of yourself.
Okay. So you could, with 29 lives, it could get really crowded with ghost versions of you in the past jumping on through there.
It does. Yeah. Right now, see, Kenneth playing right now, he went and saved Ludon Jim, who is a light sword character. Keyword light sword. Notice I'm not saying saber for fear of...
Oh, yeah, that's a light sword. That's a sword made of light.
And because he went down that whole path to save Ludon, he wasted a bunch of time. So he decided to time out, go back, and then let that character just go back and do that for him without actually having to do it himself. So you can use timeout to actually optimize your path and to save time so that you don't have to worry about running out of time in that level as well. So clock management is not something that's really central, but it's something that's a real pressure in the game. You can only exist for a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the countdown clock obviously exists there to add some urgency, but whenever there's a timer, there's an optimal time to get through the level. There's a speed run, right?
Yeah, then, we want to make sure that the game is playable ultra super hardcore style, or you can just play it because death essentially adds, abilities for you. It adds more characters, which means there's a better chance that you're going to succeed. Players who are learning the game or who aren't even really trying to be that hardcore can play, die, rewind, and then have this army going at it instead of trying to do it with a single person. But for the ultra hardcores, you want to try to play single lifestyle, go for it. Let's speedrun this. I want to see what people can do. There's already somebody at Microsoft Studios who's rocking speedruns, and they're badass.
Really?
Oh, it's so exciting.
Is that one of those moments where you as a developer see your game in the hands of someone else and just jaw drops a little bit, I did not know that that could be done in my game?
Absolutely. When someone playing the game is better than the people making the game, that's the moment that you stand up and clap and cheer. And you also kind of wonder if you just suck.
Like, yeah, is this a good thing that I wasn't able to accomplish all this? Now, was that a lizard character?
That's Zachosaurus.
Zachosaurus.
He is a rude, crude dino dude. Poochified a little bit. And at the end of every level, you get a chance to watch your playthroughs again and listen to Benny Hill style music.
Just a little lighthearted.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
So this is a future world. We got hover taxis, etc., etc. But it is Super Time Force. Did make mention of shooting dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
There is time travel in the traditional going through different periods of history.
For sure. There is no like Back to the Future style like kissing your mom type stuff, but there is, there's dinosaur era. They call it the Jurassic era. Maybe the Jurassic Park era.
Yeah, if you visit some Parkland in that Jurassic era.
There's the future. There's the present in the game is 1980X. And there's going to be a whole bunch of other really cool time periods, some in the past, some in the future that we don't want to give away so people can enjoy them as freshly as possible when they get to pick up the game.
Sure, you want to have some surprises.
Maybe a few.
Just a few. Now, what is clocks? You said clocks found?
Yes, clocks are basically the time currency in the game. So every time you collect a clock, it actually adds to your time. So that's how you can deal with if you're maybe not running the most optimal path, or you're maybe noticing that your time is running down. If you see one of the clocks, you grab it. It's going to add 10 seconds, and you're going to be in a better position time-wise.
There you go. So you also, I mean, that's sort of a pickup, if not a power-up.
Yep.
Are there power-ups in that kind of traditional platformer stuff that you guys can stumble upon?
Yeah, we really want to... We've had them in the game, but since we've changed the core mechanic, they kind of broken the game. So now we're actually working on seeing if we can get them back in. I mean, it would be tough not to do it because it's such a throwback in that sense. And again, the game is really meant to be a throwback in some ways, but it's not meant to be nostalgia for nostalgia's sake or just relying on preying on people's love of old games. It's about creating a new game that's a love letter to those old games.
Just because graphical capabilities have advanced to PS4, Xbox One, etc. levels. Oh, you're dangling there. But it doesn't mean that old art styles have lost their charm or lost their potential to be beautiful and compelling and engaging.
I think that as a studio, we're really passionate about, showing the game as kind of like a piece of art as well, like pixel art. The artists for the game, Vic and Mike Noonan, actually have a piece of Super Time Force art in the Into the Pixel gallery this year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so
Into the Pixel, for those of you who don't know, is an art gallery showcase here at E3. Game development studios will submit, pieces of art to be shown alongside. They're really cool, and I think one of our bumps here on the live stage show, one of our tape segments, will be highlighting that, just so you know. Stay tuned.
Awesome. So you'll see some of our stuff there. Yeah, and we believe that pixel art's kind of it's a style. It's not just a thing. There's so many different paths that you can take, and you can see that from Super Brothers art in Sword and Sorcery through to the art that we did in Super Time Force. They're very different styles of pixel art, but they're both pixel art. It's like painting or whatever. I think it's crazy that people don't respect pixel art as much as I think I do. But
I love it. I mean, it's cool. Obviously, happy you guys have an affinity for it. And so now we're taking a look at a little trailer, or this is just booting up the game again to take a look at some more gameplay.
Absolutely.
And while we're doing that, we got to talk about Below real quick. Another game in development from Cappy Games. Debuted yesterday at the Microsoft press conference as a modern take on sort of inspired by roguelike genre that, difficult, if you die, you're back to the beginning kind of thing. Yep,
the dungeons in the game are randomly generated as well, so no two playthroughs are going to be identical. And you play a small warrior battling his way through the depths, but mostly exploring his way.
Okay.
So the game is really about exploration. That's the main goal of the project. But as you explore, because it's a roguelike or inspired by roguelikes, you also need to survive, and that's where your sword and shield, or another weapon that you have on your back, that's where they come in handy. And we're trying to do really brutal but really fair combat. So you're going to die, but it's going to be your fault, not the game's fault.
That's the best kind of death. Well, aside from the kind of death that you can rewind here.
Yeah, see, it's funny because both of our games that we're working on right now seem so completely different, but in a way they are about some themes that sharing in common. And that's what we like to do. We love to throw out crazy ideas, and
that's a cool sort of cohesiveness of the studio atmosphere you guys have at Cappy. That when you can see a developer's, philosophies and the stuff that you guys like as a through line through the games, I think that's a mark of a really intriguing developer. Just to not confuse you folks, we were talking about Below for a second, but now we're back with Super Time Force, taking a look at the demo again. with Nathan here with Capybara Games, and this clearly some kind of boss fight.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but there's big bosses and there's the kind of like, moment bosses or sub bosses. And right now we're fighting a drone, and a lot of the enemies in the game, you can, brute force your way through it with any character, but there are optimal characters for fighting certain situations.
Okay.
So whether it's you actually need to defend yourself, or whether it's you really need to like be able to shoot through some barriers so you're always under cover. You can, I think intelligent players or players that are going to really get into the meat of it are going to find those little tweaks. We related a lot to Mega Man, where if you played in the right order and you had a certain character to fight against a certain boss, that it might get easier that way. But you didn't have to play that way.
Sure, you could brute force your way through it in any old order, but there is, you can optimize. Those mechanics are in the game to, where players who are striving to be the best Super Time Force heroes. What do we call these guys?
Super Time Forcers.
Forcer and Time.
That works.
Time Force Squad dudes. All right, so Super Time Force, developed by Capybara Games, and this is destined for Xbox Live Arcade by the end of 2013.
Absolutely.
Nathan, is there anything else you want to mention here about Super Time Force before we come to a close?
Hopefully people like the jokes. We're trying to cram it as full as possible, with a lot of ridiculous crap, and that's what's fun about making this game is mashing the gameplay with our sense of humor. And I really hope people enjoy it, and hope to get it in people's hands real soon.
Absolutely. Now, if you guys want to really get a good dose of the humor Nathan's talking about, this has been a pretty action-heavy demo. But if you head over to GameSpot.com, check out the game space for Super Time Force, you'll be able to find that trailer we were talking about earlier and get an idea for just how wacky these guys at Cappy are getting. Super Time Force, Nathan, thank you so much for coming on stage.
Dude, real pleasure.
Showing it off.
Check it out, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Super Time Force here at E3 2013. GameSpot's live coverage continues on stage 1 after we head on over to a look at console war burgeoning between the Xbox One and the PS4.